Today we're going to talk about the top 5 questions you should ask yourself before becoming a foster parent. So the first one is, are you willing to change your parenting style? Unfortunately, foster kids need a lot of different types of parenting. There's trauma, there's triggers, there's things that your children don't normally have to deal with. And so you're gonna have to be okay with parenting your kids 2 different ways.
I know for us, we have like high expectations. Like we're pretty lax in some areas, but we're also like, these are our lines we don't cross. When we had foster kids, they crossed those lines and we just had to show a lot of grace because they're coming from never having those expectations. So that was one thing that we had to just give a lot of grace and like teaching and not have those firm lines in the sand.
And so this is something that you're really gonna have to think about because again, you really have to change your parenting style and be okay with that. And so if you can't do that, then foster parenting may not be right for you. The next big question is, can you have 2 different cultures in your home? And culture isn't necessarily just skin color, but it can be rich, it can be poor, it can be middle class, it can be from a different country. There's a lot of things that go into culture. A lot of people associate culture with a skin color, but that's not really just culture. Culture is even the same skin colors living life totally different. So it's difficult to have 2 different cultures live in a single home.
You can't just expect, oh, they're coming into our house, so now this is their culture and they just need to assimilate to us, you know. You need to find ways to embrace their culture as well and help them feel like they're a part of your home because it's their home now too, even if it's temporarily, and bring some of their stuff into you and allow like maybe what they're used to is different from what you're used to, but like kind of a little give and take. And
right. And we had to do that and with simple things like Thanksgiving and the types of food that we ate. We changed the type of food. We kept all of our traditional food, but then we added some things that were important to our foster kids during Thanksgiving that we wouldn't have normally done. So again, culture is a big one. The third big question that you need to ask yourself is, how are your friends and family going to act and be around your foster children? Because they didn't sign up for this. So they may not be on board with it, but there's a level of respect that they must have. And sometimes you have to set boundaries and sometimes you have to cut people off. And that's really hard, especially when it's family members. Sometimes you just have to tell family members, I'm sorry, but we can't come around because of how you're acting.
But you can't have a grandparent coming to bring your kids little gifts and you have 2 foster kids now.
Right.
Like, you either do it for all of them or you do it for none of them. And I think grandparents may sometimes be the hardest ones because they're like, these are my grandkids and I can do whatever I want for them. Yes, you can, but you also have to do for the others too.
Absolutely.
You know?
And so this is very challenging. So something that you really need to think through, think about, are you going to be able to set firm boundaries? And how is that going to disrupt your family? And if it does create tension, are you going to be okay with that tension? So
I think have conversations ahead of time and say, this is our expectation.
Yeah.
We bring children into the home. Our expectation is that you treat them just as you would any of our other children.
The third big question you have to ask, or the fourth big question, that's why I have a good partner here. She keeps me in line. The fourth big question that you have to ask is, can you love a child so much and get connected to that child, but then be happy when they're leaving? And
I've heard people say, I could never do that because I would just get too attached to them. I couldn't have them leave. Well, that's the whole point.
Correct.
The whole point is that you love them so much, and every child deserves that your heart breaks for them when they're going home. You know, know that the goal is reunification, and that you hope that that does happen, but not, the one that's going to be heartbroken is you, and probably your bio kids if you have kids, and your partner or whatever, but that is the goal, and you should feel that way.
Absolutely.
But it is hard.
It's very,
some people
very
may say,
hard.
I couldn't do that, and that's okay.
That's correct.
Right?
Because that's the hard part, is that you, sometimes it will be a couple years, sometimes these children are going to live with you, and then this one day they disappear and they're gone. And it's a little bit like mourning death of somebody, because they just disappear. And so I can't stress this enough. This is something that you really have to think about. Mentally, can you do that? And emotionally, can you do that? Because it's emotional.
And I know a lot of people have talked after, you know, about how hard it was on their kids, you know? And that's something to ask yourself too, you know, is that okay? Will my kids be able to handle this?
Absolutely. And finally, the fifth big question you need to ask yourself is, how do you handle stressful situations? Because I'm just going to tell you, foster care is stressful. From the court systems to all the tasks that you have to do, all the running you have to do, things constantly change. Most people call it the boomerang effect. As soon as your caseworker will tell you one thing, and so you prepare, and then literally days later they could say, "Oh no, that's not going to be the case," and so it's extremely
up and down roller coasters is basically what it is, and a lot of stress, like with your kids' behaviors and their triggers, and then you're dealing with the birth parents and the court system, and it is stressful. Like, that's one thing that I would say. It's not easy. It is not for the faint of heart by any means. So make sure that you're someone that has your, ways that you can deal with stress, and your outlets that you have that are healthy for you, because you are definitely going to be in stressful situations.
Absolutely. So I hope you enjoyed these top 5 questions to ask before you become a foster parent. If you've answered that you can do all of these, you will be successful. If you've answered a few of them and you thought, I'm not sure, that doesn't mean you wouldn't be successful, but it's something that you're probably going to need to work through and have an action plan before you start, because again, these are all real situations that you're going to run into, and to be a successful foster parent, you need to be able to manage all those. Until next time, I hope you have a great day.